universe began with the Big Bang. Cosmologists can show that this happened 13.7 billion years ago.
I believe that the universe began with the Big Bang, but I do think that does not rule out the existence of God.
There were no witnesses, so I can't say it's 100% true.
I think the Big Bang must have been started off by some sort of cause there.
I believe that nothing comes from nothing and that something must have started the Big Bang, and I think that something is God.
I believe that God created the Big Bang and evolution was God's way of creating us.
The Big Bang theory could start everything off, and then the 6 days of creation story quite closely mirrors the process of evolution and the way that goes.
The 6 days creation story helps us understand God's nature, although it doesn't necessarily have to be literally true.
God's time is different to our own time, and therefore the 6 days described are not physically 6 days, they're not 24 hours each.
Looking up at the stars on a clear night, one can't help but feel overawed. Our Earth is but an ordinary planet, our Sun an ordinary star. The stars gather together in giant whirlpools called galaxies, and the galaxies form clusters of galaxies. These clusters are all retreating from each other in the aftermath of a great explosion. As Charlotte just said,
The universe began with the Big Bang. Cosmologists can show that this happened 13.7 billion years ago.
that's what we learn from astronomers and cosmologists. As you heard, Charles has his reservations.
There were no witnesses, so I can't say it's 100% true.
Well, nevertheless, the evidence for the Big Bang is overwhelming. And of course, the Big Bang's nothing like the Genesis story of 6 days creation. So what do we make of that? You know, the Bible has been caught out. What man of sense could believe that there could have been a first and a second and a third day of creation, each with a morning and an evening, before the sun had been created? The sun supposedly being created on the fourth day. So, who said that? Some modern-day skeptical scientist. Yes? No. It was St. Gregory of Nyssa, one of the early church leaders living in the 4th century, a contemporary of St. Augustine. Gregory was yet another example of an influential early church leader who did not interpret Genesis literally, in the way some fundamentalist preachers do today. Which, as Michael claimed, is not to say that the Genesis account has no value.
The 6 days creation story helps us understand God's nature, although it doesn't necessarily have to be literally true.
So, it's the Big Bang, which raises an interesting question.
I think the Big Bang must have been started off by some sort of cause there.
Religious believers might say, well, God caused the Big Bang. It was his way of bringing the world and everything into existence. At some point in time, God lit the blue touch paper, there was a Big Bang, and we were on our way. If that's how you think, be careful. There's a scientific theory that the Big Bang marked not only a coming into existence of the contents of the universe, but also the coming into existence of space and of time. There was no time before the Big Bang. And that being the case, it doesn't make sense to talk of the cause of the Big Bang. Cause comes before effect. Boy throws stone, cause, window breaks, effect. But where the Big Bang is concerned, there was no before. So you can't have a cause of the Big Bang. It was this that prompted the famous cosmologist Stephen Hawking, in his best-selling book, A Brief History of Time, to write, what place then for a creator? No cause, no creator. But does that follow? Someone who doesn't think so was St. Augustine. Yes, Augustine again. Way back in the 4th century, he had already concluded that time was as much a property of the world as anything else, and would therefore have had to have been created along with everything else. How did he work that out? Well, basically, he argued, how do we know there is such a thing as time? It's because things change. They change their position in time. The hands of a clock. If nothing changed its position, or had ever changed its position, what would the word time refer to? Nothing. And more than that, if nothing even existed, stationary or moving because they hadn't been created, what would the word time refer to? It would be meaningless. So in that simple way, Augustine was able to work out that there was no such thing as time before there was a world. What's more, he did it 1,600 years before us scientists got to that conclusion. And yet, despite this lack of time before the world came into existence, the impossibility of having a cause of the world, Augustine believed in God, God the Creator. How? It's because we're confusing two words which, fair enough, in ordinary everyday conversation we might use them interchangeably, but when talking theology, they must be kept distinct. Those words are origins and creation. The Big Bang is all about how the world originated. It's all about origins. That is something that doesn't particularly interest theologians. No, what they're interested in is creation. The creation question is quite different. Sean?
I believe that nothing comes from nothing.
The creation question is, why is there something rather than nothing? Why are we here? What's responsible for our existence and for what we see around us now? Does it take something to keep all this in existence? Creation is not particularly concerned about the first instant of time rather than, any other. As soon as something exists, anything at all, then the questions start. How come it exists? Why does this kind of thing exist and something else doesn't? And the answer to that question for religious people is God. As the theologian Paul Tillich put it, God is the ground of all being. Stephen Hawking, in his later book, The Grand Design, here he claims he has now indeed answered the question, the creation question, why is there something rather than nothing? His answer, M-theory. This is an idea that there might be a law of nature capable of spontaneously creating universes. It gave rise to this universe and to others, a vast number of big bangs happening all over the place. Hence, M-theory explains why there is something rather than nothing. You don't need God. This is how the Times newspaper greeted Hawking's book. The Times, no less, so it must be true. Or is it? Okay, M-theory might explain how the universe came into existence, and lots of universes, but where does M-theory come from? M-theory itself. Who or what is responsible for its existence? M-theory and the other laws of nature, they're intelligible. Might it not have taken an intelligence to set them up in the first place? Intelligence with a capital I? What do you think? In the light of our modern understanding of cosmology, is it still possible to think of a creator God? If not, then what else could be the answer to the question, why is there something rather than nothing?